to have that discussion. We are joined by Chege Mwaura, who's an MCA of Ngara, which is in Nairobi County. We also have Gabriel Budhuma, who is a governance consultant or expert. And last but not least, we have Kevin Osido, who's a director, County Governance Watch. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Now, the question that we had asked you earlier on is the question in regards to governors, and is the absence of governors who are on trial affecting service delivery in counties? Do you think the absence of governors who are on trial affecting service delivery in counties? We have 3 governors currently who have been barred from going to their offices, and this is because they are under investigation for various charges. And of course, the Constitution did envisage, should there not be a governor, there was a fallback. In some cases, we have a deputy governor. In others, like Nairobi County, we do not have a deputy governor. And of course, services are meant to continue being delivered despite that fact. But we've seen the politics of that playing in, and that's where we bring in this discussion. So would like to find out from you. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. If you'd like to tweet, you can tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga or at Trix Ingado, or you can also tweet us at KTN News KE. Now, gentlemen, that's the question that we had asked earlier on. And allow me to start with you, Chege Mwaura, because as one who is in Nairobi County, Nairobi County, of course, has been affected by virtue of the fact that the governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, who I think people called Mr. Bombastic yesterday, has been barred from office, and Nairobi is unique by virtue of the fact that there is no deputy governor. Yeah. Do you feel that services have been affected, interrupted, or disrupted by the virtue of the fact that the governor has been absent?
Of course.
Or barred from office?
Of course. You see, the way devolution was meant to work, or the system of government at the county level, was in such a way that the governor and the deputy governor and their team of a cabinet was to run the policy actions, and then the other things also follow through. If you do not have a governor, then it means there's a breakdown in the cabinet.
Correct.
Yeah, and then of course for Nairobi is even worse because there is no deputy governor, which means from a policy point of view, we've been shortchanged, or no policy action is going to take place, and the general planning and direction of the county is not happening. Secondly, if you look at if you were to do a survey and rope in even the other 3 governors who are out, I would bet you that services have gone low. Not even an opinion poll, a survey. Because this, in Nairobi, January is the peakest, the highest peak of collections in terms of getting our own source revenue, where we clock nothing less than 90 to 100 million a day on any given day, in terms of, because this is the time people are paying rates, this is the time people are paying all this manner of licenses. If you look at statistics of the last, in the first 20 days of the year, how we are performing, it's dismally low compared to the other years that have happened. And that's why I'm saying we'd better do a survey so to see the magnitude of the problem. And if you're not going to raise that money, it means you're also not going to raise the services. You're not able to pay for the services that we propose to raise. We are also not going to pay pending bills and services that have already been offered. Again, if you look at now in terms of the payments that are going to happen and all that, there is also those kind of gaps that we're going to
challenges that we're facing.
So it's definitely not a good situation. And I hoped when the president was making his address to the nation, I thought Nairobi would have been part of without pointing fingers. But I think Nairobi, with its strategic position, with the kind of money that is collected in Nairobi in terms of the general tax collection of the country, I think it should have happened. So we know for a fact. Let's not wait to be told by a court that whether the governor is going to get us a deputy or not. Let us know that the general direction of the county is actually safeguarded, is in the heart of the country. That I think even the president should have roped in early, even a cabinet meeting and a cabinet discussion to know, are we going to disband the whole county government?
Or what's going to happen?
Right,
we'll come to that, but let me come to you, Gabriel, as a governance consultant. it's worrying to hear from an MCA that services are actually affected.
Yes.
Because then what that means is a lot of power vested in that position of governor.
True.
And the question here, of course, then becomes more worrying when we imagine that these governors are not absent because they are unwell.
True.
Or because something went wrong and they're not able to come to office. These are issues to do with corruption, issues to do with integrity, issues to do with Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Right.
Where does that leave us as Kenyans, and what does that say about devolution?
Gitonga, I'm glad actually you mentioned Chapter 6 of the Constitution. But before that, let me just bring you to how we ended up in this mess. You remember the time of 2013, where everybody was so excited that we have a new formation and when we have new forms of governance and devolution is here. Many people did not actually understand, even the leaders that were going, looking for elective position at that time. That's why you saw many people ran to the Senate, because the Senate appeared to be something good. It appeared to be, it had these political razzmatazz, but many people did not understand what the governor was. Up until a certain time, when we came to 2017, you start wondering, hey, why do all these senators want to become governors? Because they realized that's where the big bucks are. That's where they felt the power was. And so senators started, this is where we want to be.
Scrambling to become
so
governors.
What I believe we did not censor, me and you, we did not censor these governors well enough. And that's why devolution is going to be affected. Basing my argument on the fact that we have voted people in who cannot carry the sophisticates of a county. And that's a major, major problem to us. Remember, I always say this thing, we operate under installed capacity. Anything you do not know and you do not want to learn or you're not willing to learn, you cannot just think and hope it becomes.
But one might challenge that, Mr. Muthuma, by virtue of the fact that the Constitution envisaged a fallback. Fallback here being Senate,
correct,
who are supposed to be our eyes and the ones to make sure that
even before you get to the Senate, there are certain fallbacks within the county. You have them.
MCAs.
Yes. The MCAs, because they are now the direct link. Forget the governor. The MCAs are the direct link with mashinani, where we wanted devolution to go. In fact, that is the heart of devolution. It is the mwananchi wa kawaida, where Mwaura sits. He actually, before he gets into his car, he will find Mama Mboga waiting for him. You see, that conversation, he's engaging with the people on the ground. And he's taking their problems to the county assembly. Now, imagine you arrive to the county assembly where the governor sits. First of all, he does not even understand what you're telling him. He is so taken in by the power or the powers that may be of feeling, you are in a very high place where you cannot be touched. It is very easy to disengage, but more than that, he is able to remove a few notes and give it to the MCAs. Go sort yourself. Guess what? He has bought their loyalty. Their loyalty moves from becoming, and he will tell you that's a major problem in counties. Their loyalty will stop being with the mwananchi wa mashinani. Their loyalty becomes with the governor. And by virtue of that, you delink the spirit of devolution.
Maura, is that true?
Maura will tell you, by the way, if I can answer it for him.
He's here. Let him answer. And as you answer that, also tell us whether you have done your job, particularly for Nairobi, given that Mike Mbuvi Sonko has not been impeached as we speak.
Let me give you a good example. Kiambu is a good example where everybody is from one party. Jubilee, Governor, Jubilee, MCAs and all that.
True.
And still, they managed to impeach you, right? Come to Nairobi, where we have actually half and half, Jubilee and NASA. And there you've had the calls of an impeachment that are rearing. And of course, the process started when you were in recess. So it's still gathering steam for the guys who want to run. So you can't actually say that we are all seated somewhere waiting for things to make, systems run themselves. It is true that there are people who are in the governor's pocket, and you cannot force. It's politics. There are people who want to be led or want to, be somewhere they can praise their master and worship him for whatever the
benefits and gains that they have.
But then again, and that's why I've said, if Nairobi has found itself in a situation where even the Constitution never envisaged, where there's a problem with the governor, we do not have a deputy governor, and there is a disfranchised cabinet that is not working. What happens? And that's why I said maybe the president should have come out clearly and said, this is the direction that needs to happen. Nairobi, again, I'm very clear when I say that services are not being rendered. For you to even move things like garbage, it's a process, because the payments that were supposed to be done have not been paid. Again, just yesterday I'm being told that some of my colleagues went to eject an EC member and installed another at the instructions of the governor, who's supposed not to be interfering with his own cabinet. So those things are there, and we cannot pretend that they are not happening.
Okay.
All that needs to happen is that should such a situation happen that is happening in Nairobi, if I'm not doing my job, then the other person, the higher position, because those safeguards were done, Senate should come in, the presidency should come in, or we just wait and see
what happens. All right, let me bring in Kevin Osido on how we got here. We are shortly going to also look at the fate of somebody like Waitito, who Senate is going to be sitting and reviewing his case as to whether they will okay the impeachment by the MCAs. But how did we get ourselves here to a point where we have so many counties that that are leaderless, so to speak, because their leaders are either out of office by court order, and as a result, governance, devolution is taking a blow.
How we got ourselves here, we elected them into office. But it's quite unfortunate, because those are the choices that we were given to elect into office.
Choices have consequences.
And now we are facing the consequences. The political parties that nominated these individuals into these elective positions need to pronounce themselves. I like it because Jubilee has has pronounced itself a number of times on the Nairobi issue, but I still think that there is something which is not being done, because the party leader of Jubilee is His Excellency the President, and in the previous steps, we have seen a very close linkage between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Governor Sonko, where the governor would even put the president on speaker and say, Mheshimiwa Rais, tuko hapa, iko shamba inachukuliwa, ebu ongea, and the president would actually speak. Now, those are things which, in my view, from a leadership and governance perspective, should not even be seen to be happening, because, as my colleagues and co-panelists have said, there are policies and frameworks that make devolution work. Our constitution is very progressive. Yes, right now we are seeing gaps that are being now envisioned, especially Nairobi giving us a very good case where we do not have a governor and do not have a deputy governor. The constitution, including the 6 other laws that support that constitution, have been absent. But it's exciting, because then we need to find a way as Kenyans on how do we deal with some of these issues that we ourselves made ourselves to get here. Number 2, when you are elected a governor, the county governments, in fact, the constitution refers to you as a chief executive officer, not even a governor. Imagine the CEO of Safaricom running Safaricom the way Nairobi County is being run. Imagine the CEO of Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB, running KCB the way Nairobi County is being run. And that is why
the crafters of the constitution put in measures that would ensure, should the CEO, as you call him, go amok for whatever reason, we have safeguards that should come in and kick in, and either he gets impeached or something happens so that it is taken over. Do you feel?
That's actually a very pertinent question you've asked. The Constitution actually envisaged certain things happening, and you are so right. That is why the position of a governor had to be complete when a deputy governor is in place. Now, the reason why you would remove that is because you do not want to be censored. And for a good reason. We've seen some governors like the one in Nairobi. That was the first position he ensured that does not last. That's not it. Again, Mheshimiwa here will tell you that even the CECs, the positions of CEC were not complete. So this was a county during Sonko's era that has not known how to run like a well-oiled machine. It has never been complete. And then, if such a county, which we all agree, is where 60% of our GDP comes from, if it's not complete, what do we expect then of service delivery? They are going to be hampered whether we like it or not. And then we go back to the governor. Governor, why are you not strong enough, because only a strong governor would say, I am leaving to the true spirit of what the law and the constitution demands, and not only that, the spirit of devolution. You must be very strong for you to understand that as I grow, I need my deputy governor to be around me. For us to grow the county, I need all the CEC positions taken by knowledgeable men and women. I need my county CEOs to be in place so that service delivery can be guaranteed. So when you have pockets of offices or officers that are not in place, service delivery Gitonga is going to be hampered by none. Completely. So what we should be asking is this: why is this governor so afraid of ensuring that Nairobi runs by excellence? Why can you not go out there and get people who you know? Forget politics. Get people who you know can deliver the service. Remember, at the end of the day, me and you, Gitonga, when we start voting, when probably, I'm just saying this, if Governor Sonko was to come back for re-election, we will look at his scorecard. What do you think we'll give him? Do you think he even qualifies at this point to even seek another term? How many people would stand in line? And I know people will say, you know, when it comes to politics, we don't think, that's why we are being called Wajinga and what have you. But you tell me, how many people, even in Mashinani, who know what this county can produce?
Although you know, they say that the best way to know what is going to happen in the future is look at the past. And looking at the past, it's not like Sonko is coming with a clean record.
True.
There was a lot that came in, so I'm not sure that would change come election time.
No, you see, when we talk about when we engage about devolution, when we engage about having a constitution that's progressive, it also means that we need to have our electorate informed. And for us to do that, there has to be stop measure or gate, what I call gatekeepers. And gatekeepers can be anything that is ensuring that the constitution is actually disseminated to the letter. And how do you do that? You bring in things like Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is actually supposed to ensure that we do not get people like Sonko. That is what Chapter 6 is there. It clearly stipulates you cannot have somebody with a criminal record. And that's why I started by asking. We need to ask ourselves very serious questions. How did we get here? That's a question we need to ask.
That's a question we need to answer. Maura, from your experience, what is it that we need to learn out of these experiences that are going through? I believe you're doing your second term as MCA in Ngara. What have you learned so far to help us as Kenyans ensure that we strengthen devolution? Because like Muduma says, that Chapter 6 is really meant to filter and ensure that those that we already get on the ballot are already selected to some extent, and we're not dealing with issues of integrity. Again, interestingly, when we look at even the governors that we're talking about here, there's a common thread that is running through, and all of them are alleged, under, integrity issues or corruption. What is it that you learn that you'd educate us to ensure that we're not here come 2022 in terms of safeguarding devolution?
Mike, first and foremost, choices have serious consequences. That you choose to pick one end of a stick, of course you'll pick the other. If you pick me, you also pick my bad characteristics and all those things. What I've learned and what I would maybe want my fellow Kenyans also to learn is, number one, if everyone does their part well, including all these institutions that have been put, as he's talked about. EACC cleared you. Why did they clear you in the first place? Or you got, help here and all those things. If all these things, if all of them played without being interfered with, you would not be cleared. Secondly, on political parties, how we are supposed to be running political parties. If Jubilee was afraid, if they drop this guy, the other party is going to pick him and they're going to win. Because at the end of the day, the big boys are there thinking of how do I win more counties and who is the best person to win, regardless of their character and their ability to run whatever it is that they want to run. So I think that is also supposed to be looked into from a party's point of view. Finally, because these guys are governance experts, how do we also engineer the voter to also be able to discern all these things? When I come with a load of cash and I'm dishing out, am I the best candidate? Or this person who's telling you these are the deals that I'm standing for, think about me. And I've told people this here and before, that even the guy, when you are in your school, when you're choosing a parent to be the head of the class or the head of, the parents' school association, all that, we look at the person who looks more consistent, the kids are performing well. When you come back to our estates, You look at the estate chairman, he's a person who, you know, their characteristics you look for.
yeah.
Even in church, the guys will elect as elders or deacons. We look for, and it's not at your CV, but the characteristics that you feel this person is going to do a good job, or at least he's going to own up. And when we come in and you're given the term honorable, you know, it means that even if you are not very honorable, this position forces you to be very, you know, or at least pretend to be.
Threshold.
Yeah. So those things need to, we need to start inculcating them, so that at the end of the day, if you look at the 2 terms that were there, we tried a highly schooled governor. We didn't work. We've now gone the other side. It's still not working. So what do we need to do? You know. So I think for Nairobians, we need to look at it critically, because Sonko had a very good chance to prove to the Mashinani people, because that's a core his supporters. Instead of bringing now water tanks, now what policies are you going to put so that water is not such a bad issue? If you want to create employment for the youth, what measures are you going to put in place instead of having, you know, bringing these guys?
On you as an individual.
Yeah, so that now is
Kevin
out.
Osido.
You know?
And Kevin, today Waitito's case is before Senate. What is it that you'd expect? The MCAs in Kiambu County have spoken. They have made it very clear that this is the way we'd like to go. And now Senate has a decision to make. What is it that you'd expect out of Senate, given that they're there to represent Kiambu?
And that the Senate is meant to protect the interest of devolution. So I expect that the decision that is going to be made by the Senate should be one that is going to stamp the decision that was made by the members of County Assembly of Kiambu County. Of course, from a practical perspective, which is really theory anyway, if we dealt with the politics around what Senate is and Mheshimiwa Waitito's prayers before the Senate, whether the members of County Assembly have concrete evidence against the impeachment, which of course there is, because there is alarming evidence that has been presented through the initial hearings of the process. From what EACC gathered, the newspapers have covered this. Mheshimiwa has been out there talking about his issues. And there's evidence that money was stolen and that money has gotten lost, which is supposed to be equal to services that are being delivered for the people of Kiambu. I have been to Kiambu many times, at least 7 times, to talk to people in town halls, and you can feel from what the citizens are saying that this is not what they expected, especially because the governor of Kiambu and the governor of Nairobi, their antics almost very closely linked and related, and you would have expected that, given the kind of promises and the pledges that they put forward, and the fact that it is people voting for you, and that they are saying you are our person. Of course, not bringing in the likes of Kabogo and his running and the kind of other promises that they had for the people of Kiambu, and the work that somebody like Mheshimiwa Kabogo had done during his 2013-2017 term. But the expectation around what devolution and service delivery is supposed to be for the citizens. So I'm hoping that the Senate will be keen to look at what are the prayers, what have the county assembly members of Kiambu presented, what were the issues around his impeachment. Do they hold water? I think they really hold a lot of water. And then that Kiambu County would be a case that then would be out there to help us deal with some of the gaps that we're experiencing today. We're not saying that only these 3 counties have issues. Almost all the 47 counties have issues. But the people who sit at leadership positions have found themselves innovative ways to be able to deal with their issues. Not all deputy governors are working closely with their governors. Not all governors are working closely with their CECs. Not all chief officers are working closely with the other people that they're supposed to be. But for the interest of the Mwananchi and for services to be delivered, and Michael, it is less than 1,000 days to the next general election. You really need to be thinking about from here, what am I going to be? Governors who are serving a second term are today talking about creating a regional government somewhere where we can then move on, because by constitution you've served your and so you cannot be re-elected. And so I'm hoping that the Senate, in the spirit and by its own institutional framework, will be able to look at what are these issues that the people are talking about. I know, for instance, that there are a number of citizens that were also out there in Kiambu County picking petitions. I am praying that these were that they were able to submit them to not just the county assembly, but that the Senate will also be looking at what were the citizens saying when they were signing the petitions that were being picked in Matatu bus stations, in those markets, and all that. Yeah.
All right, and I want us to take a short break. When we come back, I want to hear from you, Gabriel and Maura, what you expect of the Senate. But also, let's look at the question, what's the biggest hindrance to the success of devolution? 10 years. We're now 10 years into the new constitution and devolution. There seems to be something that's not working. And also answer this question, is the absence of governors who